Right, so we're here on a new episode of Fly Side Chats, and today we have Mike Agnetta, and I'll let Mike introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself.
Sure. Thanks, Anthony, and thanks for having me. My name is Mike Agnetta. I live in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so I grew up fishing for trout in cold water, and then when I moved to Florida, took a whole different path. My day job is I work for a company called Fanatics, and we basically sell licensed sports products, whether it's T-shirts, hats, memorabilia, you name it. But the reason why Anthony's talking to me today, I guess most likely, is because of the fishing that I do. You may know me, or people that might not know me, they may have heard of me from either the Troutrageous blog. That was kind of how I started, I guess, online in fishing and kind of learning that. And then over the years, that kind of grew into the Tenkara Angler, first magazine and then website, which I'm the editor of, along with Matt Sment and Jason Sparks.
And so, looking forward to the next year, the year coming up. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to getting back to, or new things you want to try, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, 2020 was kind of super depressing. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like I said, I live in Florida, but I grew up fishing for trout, and there's no trout in Florida, at least not cold water trout. So I didn't really get to do the trips that I normally do, whether it would be out to Colorado or North Carolina or all the places that I normally did because of the travel restrictions. And quite honestly, like, being at home all the time, just kind of got into a funk, like a little bit of a depression. So I didn't do a lot of fishing locally either. It just kind of like fishing fell out of my repertoire. So, I'm really excited just to get back and doing that, even if the travel isn't cross country or anything like that. Obviously we're not quite out of the COVID, issue at
Right.
the moment. I would like to expand the boundaries and get fishing again. One of the things I'm kind of targeting in the short term is I'd like to do a little bit more car camping. Drive to a place and kind of throw a sleeping bag or whatever in the back of my SUV and just kind of trout bum it for a couple
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
Do a long weekend or something like that. Or go with places that are within maybe extended driving distance. I don't know if I'm quite ready to do the airport thing yet,
Yeah.
but driving up to Pennsylvania where I'm from, or maybe it's the Shenandoah Valley, something like that. I mean, shoot, I'd even consider. I both love the Driftless.
Yeah.
I even consider doing that drive, which I think I may target in May, but we'll see. From a travel standpoint, I think that's what I got my eye on. And
Yeah.
then, quite honestly, from an equipment or a stylistic standpoint, I mean, I think a lot of people know me as a Tenkara fisher, and I would like to obviously continue to do that. But I've been using my rod and reels, my fly rod and reels, a lot more. So what I think I'd probably do is, on my trips when I go to trout water, I'll probably use my Tenkara equipment because I like to go to places that are suited for that. But locally, I got a 5 weight fiberglass rod last year, and I just want to go, kind of dredge up all the local water that I didn't last year when I was, kind of in the kind of a
Yeah.
little bit on the depressed side. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So I've got plan. You mentioned the drift list, and that's what I got behind me here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I hope you get. I'm going to be out there in May, so if you get out there, maybe we'll.
Yeah, I mean that's really the only time I've ever fished out there, and it's just been it's such a great time of year to fish out there because it's still a little bit cool, so
Yeah.
the bugs aren't crazy, all the stream side grasses
Yeah.
aren't super high,
Yeah, this
and
picture behind me is from June. That's from early June.
gotcha.
So you can see the difference. Like
It is. It's
it's like,
quite a bit of difference, and it's just such a cool area to fish. I mean, I never really grew up fishing, kind of those, if you would call them cow pasture type streams
yeah,
or things
yeah.
like that. But it's just such a unique kind of way to fish or place to fish. I love it.
So you mentioned your rod and reel.
Uh-huh.
Are you fishing like bass and stuff? Is that what you're?
Yeah, yeah. So obviously living in Florida, I have I shouldn't say I don't have a boat. I have a kayak. Um, which I don't use as often as I use. I don't have a trailer for it, so it's one of those kayaks that you kind of got to lift up and put on the
Yeah,
top of your
yeah,
SUV. And if you're just going to go out for 2 hours or something like that, it's just a whole ordeal to do that. So a lot of what I do is kind of cruise around, the neighborhoods and things like that, and fish, the retention ponds or small bodies of water, whatever. Just kind of bank fish, but I do it with a fly rod. It's not spinning or anything like that. Not there's anything wrong with that. But I've kind of converted, I guess, for lack of a better term, into being a fly guy. And yeah, I have a 5-weight fiberglass rod that I use most of the time. I throw streamers, just anything that flashy that'll get a bass's attention, and usually is a little bit too big to get too much, bluegill
Okay.
bycatch.
Did you start fly fishing with Tenkara? Was that, or did you fly fish before you
No,
picked up
so
the Tenkara?
it was slightly thereafter. My whole fishing journey like took a rapid succession, not counting like when I was a little kid. Like just like a lot of other little kids, I had the spin cast, bobber, worm, that kind of stuff. And then I kind of took a long hiatus from fishing just in general. And it wasn't actually until probably about 14 or 15 years ago now that I got back into it. I happened to move to a place in Pennsylvania that was near a farm park that stocked trout and stuff like that. So, I started like a lot of people do, with a spinning rod and reel and, with like Panther Martins and stuff like that, and did that for a season or two. And what I found is, as I was trying to learn more about trout fishing, you just type trout fishing in Google or whatever browser I was using at the time, and it's all like fly fishing stuff that comes up.
Right.
And I probably fell for the romanticism of fly fishing. So, I moved on to a fly rod and reel, and I did about a season and a half of that, before, I kind of stumbled upon Tenkara. And, I was doing okay with the fly rod and reel, but I'll tell you what, once I fished Tenkara, dedicated for maybe 6 months or something, and then I went back to my 3-weight, like my fishing was just way better. Like I don't know what it was. I don't know if I just picked up confidence, fishing with the simpler setup, or maybe I was just getting better at reading water, but it made me a better fly angler. So, I used both while I was in Pennsylvania. I alternate between like a 3-weight or a Tenkara rod pretty much the entire time I was there. And now, because I do get to fish cold water so infrequently, I tend to, just more or less go with Tenkara when I do it, because it's usually like a long weekend or something like that. I do really enjoy Tenkara and all that brings.
So when you're going to go, take the Tenkara rod out and go for some car camping, where you head? What's drivable for you from?
Yeah, so a lot of the places I go are either in North Georgia or Western North Carolina right now. North Georgia, for people that don't know, is a great place. It's a great wild trout fishery. Sure, there's stock trout too, but it's kind of the terminus, I guess, of the Appalachian Mountains. So there are headwaters, there are brook trout, obviously. There's a lot of rainbows, which obviously are not native, but they've created wild populations there. And it's just a ton of fun just to go out and kind of blue line. In North Georgia. Western North Carolina is a whole different animal. I mean, there's lots of places you can go out there. I think they have the whole trout trail or whatever it's called out there. I like Smoky Mountain, Great Smoky Mountain National Park, at least kind of like as a base camp. And then kind of wander around from there.
The Smokies, the park there is great, and you got those small streams. I went 2 Octobers ago now, and I fished for like a week by myself, and I don't think I came across another angler the whole time I was there.
You really don't see them. It's funny. So one of the trips that I actually got to do last year, I was having enough. I was like going bonkers, being stuck in the house. My wife was like, just go somewhere. So it was Labor Day weekend. I went to the Smokies during Labor Day weekend, and it was super crowded. But all the people, you're familiar with you're probably familiar with the Smokies. I was in Cherokee. And there's a lot of water outside of the actual park that that gets stocked quite heavily. So I'm driving into the park, and I'm just seeing car after car in the pull-offs, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But once I got into the park, there was nobody there. Everybody was, it was like an opening day in Pennsylvania all the way in. And then once you got inside, there was nobody there. And it was great. It was like the best 2 days. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was my experience too. Yeah, I saw those folks in town, all along the creek, and I got in, and it was like leaf peeper season, so there were tons of people there, just super crowded. But nobody fishing. I mean, and I wasn't going, like, I was by myself, so I was kind of sticking to Maine. I wasn't going back in the woods, but I could park anywhere, fish by myself. I was shocked, so. I don't want to talk it up too much, though. I don't want it to get too crowded. Although,
we won't tell them where to go, but it is a great spot to go fish. I would highly encourage anybody to go fish the Smokies, whether it's in North Carolina or Tennessee. It's a great place to fish for trout. I do fish in the salt or the marshes. Like I said, I have a kayak. I've used that to go chase redfish.
Oh, cool.
We also have a shad run, which is kind of interesting. The shad run up to St. Johns River, they start in Orlando and go up to basically Jacksonville actually it's this time of year. I didn't do it this year, but they go around the Super Bowl every year in February. And it's fun to go fish for shad. It's something you don't necessarily associate with Florida, but
yeah, I had no idea. I think of like the Schuylkill River or whatever, you know, and things up in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That I usually go out with a guide because you kind of got to get on a boat to like go and fish those. I have a friend down here, a guide friend that I made over the years. His name's Rich Santos, and he runs a nice operation, and he's taken me out for shad probably 2 or 3 years. It's a lot of fun. To be honest with you, I'm not like, I haven't really taken to the salt. You know, I've lived in Florida since 2013. And for whatever the reason, I just haven't adopted the salt life. You know what I mean? I kind of equate it to, when people ask me about it, they're like, why are you fishing for trout? You live in Florida. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And I kind of equate it to the fact that, like, you know, maybe if you have a big boat, it might be different. But to me, fishing in Florida in the heat, it's like a high impact exercise that I don't really have fun doing. Like, I don't relax. I fish to relax, and decompress. And there's just something about when you're in the cool of like the shade of, you know, the forest or whatever, the woods, whatever you want to call it. And you have that cold water, you know, going by your feet. It just takes my blood pressure down and puts me in a good place.
You're going to one of these small streams with your Tenkara rod. What fly are you taking?
Probably I'm one of those Futsu Kabari guys. So the stiff hackle Kabari. I do fish Sakasa, but not necessarily. So I'd probably do a Futsu Kabari. And I'm not really one that cares about the body color. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen any of the flies that I tie, but I tend to fly like bright orange bodies. Just because I can bright orange bodies with white hackle, just because I can see them in the water. And I like to be able to see them when you're fishing, you know, that top, whatever it is, 6 or so feet of water, or 6 inches of water. You know, I like to see the fly, as opposed to trying to seek it out. So that's probably what I would use. I'd probably use a Futsu, you know, with a bright body, and maybe it's orange, yellow, whatever, just something I can see with white hackle. I do like white hackle.
The other thing that I've been meaning to ask people is, you have to pick a desert island disc. So you got one album you can pick.
Oh man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. So I don't know if there's a specific album, but I've said this online a lot. I love Queen, which is really kind of strange. It's not, I don't know. It's like a late onset sort of thing. I don't know.
Late onset.
But, you know, but like if Queen comes on the stereo on the car or something like that, like I'm just singing in the car like crazy. My wife thinks I'm nuts. Although, you know, I love Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, as well. I think I've seen them in concert probably 6 or 7 times. So couldn't go wrong with one of them either.
So I just want to turn it over to you for any last comments before we sign off. Anything you want to add that you didn't get a chance to?
Cool. Well, I don't know if there's anything I wanted to add. I did want to thank you, you know, obviously for having me as a guest. I've been enjoying these a lot. So it's cool, I guess, to be part of the family in that regard. I mean, maybe the only thing that I would say is, you know, obviously, you know, there's a lot of different ways to fish. You know, make sure you experience them all. Don't be too dogmatic in your fishing. I think a lot of people do that. They say, I am a dry fly fisherman, or I am a Tenkara fisherman, or, you know, whatever. There's a lot of stuff out there to explore, and you don't know what kind of fun you can have until you do. So, you know, that would be my thing to say, advice, whatever. I don't know.